Heavy spoiler warning. If you haven't played Resident Evil Village, please do not watch this video. View at your own risk. We have experienced Ethan Winter's journey through the village in his attempts to save his daughter Rose, taking on the Lycans, the Four Lords, and Mother Miranda in a game-changing entry in the Resident Evil saga. By the time you're finished, you discover how Umbrella is connected to the village, how Mother Miranda plays a part in not only Village, but the entire saga, what happened to Zoe Baker after Resident Evil 7, some hints as to Oswald Spencer's early life, and finally the real fate of Ethan Winters in Resident Evil 7. But there are a couple of questions that are still unanswered. By the closing moments of Resident Evil Village, the village itself and some of its surroundings have been destroyed. The Four Lords are dead, and Mother Miranda and Ethan Winters have both been annihilated in the final explosion, leaving Mia, Rose, and Chris Redfield and his team as the only survivors. The BSAA has been discovered to be using bioweapon soldiers as well, and Chris has decided to seek answers from the BSAA in their Europe HQ. And it turns out that not only did Mother Miranda directly work with the Connections in developing Evelyn, named after her long-dead daughter Eve, but she also met Oswald E. Spencer and influenced him into creating Umbrella and pursuing his ideology of using bioweapons development to evolve humanity. They may not have left on good terms, but they both would cause a chain reaction of events felt through the entire Resident Evil universe that would shape the saga for years to come. The only real difference being that Miranda would favour the mould parasites, and Spencer would make use of the Stairway to the Sunflower in West Africa to develop the progenitor virus and subsequent viral strains. But there are still many questions that haven't been explained yet. When we saw the infamous Umbrella logo in the trailers and the showcases adorning ancient structures and the Collector's Edition map, it got us thinking, is this going to be a retconned origin for the Umbrella Corporation and its founders? In this case it was a yes and a no. Oswald Spencer, Edward Ashford and James Marcus would still be the three founding members, but Spencer would be inspired partially by Mother Miranda and would make use of the indigenous Umbrella logo on the ancient cave sculptures and the Giant's Chalice and the ceremony site as his company logo, in honour of his friend and mentor, Mother Miranda. She would inspire him to make use of viruses rather than parasites. While this explains the origin of the Umbrella logo and a more rounded-off explanation for Spencer's motivations, it doesn't explain the origins or the reasons for the ceremony site, the Umbrella logo, and the sculptures of the Four Lords in the underground cavern and on the surface. Both Miranda and Spencer both researched the site, discovering all four families have been tied to these sites for a long time. But the purpose of the ceremony site is still unclear, apart from Miranda's use of the site, and Rose, to attempt a resurrection of her daughter, Eve. What was it used for before Miranda's attempt to resurrect Eve? Was there no practical use besides the heads of the four families using it as a meeting point? The officer's document in the Stronghold poses the same questions, branding the locals as heretics, seemingly being unaware of Mother Miranda. It's possible that the four families' ceremony site and the Giant's Chalice were created by others who discovered the Megamycete long before Miranda, but refused to learn how to use it properly, instead possibly trying to seal it away from the world while the four families would act as guardians. Since the village is destroyed now, it's not likely we will find out the truth, and it will remain in the realm of theory. During the closing moments of Resident Evil 7 and the end of Zoe and Not a Hero DLC, we know that the Umbrella Corporation has been reborn as Blue Umbrella, apparently now a private military company, or PMC, aiding the BSAA in their fight against the global bioterrorism threats. The Baker incident report delves a little deeper into the outbreak and reveals the BSAA was indirectly responsible for the Baker family tragedy, after failing to destroy Evelyn and causing her to be relocated via the ship which would crash into the Louisiana Bayou near the Baker homestead, eventually covering up the incident and hiding the Winters family in Eastern Europe and helping Zoe move on from the tragedy as well. But there are three things that are not really explained from 7, its DLC or Village. Firstly, what happened to Joe Baker after saving Zoe from the mutated Jack Baker and the remnants of the mold infections? He's the only character from 7 who is not referenced in the Baker incident report. Was he relocated by the BSAA? Did he join them? Or is he still living a nomadic lifestyle somewhere in Louisiana, isolating himself from the rest of the world? It's very likely we will never hear from this character again, much like other one-off characters like Carlos, Sheva and Billy. Next up is what happened to the connections after the events of 7. We know from the documentation that the BSAA felt that the connections were still a threat to the Winters family, and must be hidden to prevent any retaliations from the crime syndicate. We know now that Mother Miranda worked with them to develop the E-Series Evelyn bioweapon in the hopes of resurrecting her daughter. But after Evelyn's escape and demise, Miranda breaks ties with the connections, but not before being informed by the connections of the Winters family and their daughter's existence and location. We have to assume that they are still active in some way, but why have they been absent from the events of Village? Could they just be licking their wounds and biding their time ready for Revelations 3 or Resident Evil 9? As far as we were concerned, the death of Mother Miranda and Evelyn is not the end for this mysterious organisation. Finally, what exactly was the role of Blue Umbrella and their motivations? We know from 7 and its DLC that Blue Umbrella are looking to clear up the public image and dissociate from the illegal bioweapons past of Spencer's Umbrella Corporation, going as far as to provide weapons and equipment used by Ethan Winters and Chris Redfield in 7 and Village. But is it possible that this could be a ruse and that they are working in secret with another company, say the BSAA? With the BSAA having used bioweapons themselves in the Village outbreak, could they have been working with the connections and/or Blue Umbrella? There is still so much we don't know about this organisation. This could be a case of a leopard not changing its spots, and Blue Umbrella looking to revive the umbrella of old behind its new blue facade. After Chris finds his way to the Megamycete and makes his way to Miranda's underground lab, he discovers detailed information on the Four Lords' abilities and their affinity with the Cadu parasites, while also being rejected to be suitable hosts for Eve, along with documents showing Miranda's involvement with Oswald Spencer and the connections. But we also discover that Miranda has held Mia Winters hostage, after trading places with her to get to Rose. During her incarceration, Mia reveals she was experimented on by Miranda. As to what exactly happened to her, we don't know. She doesn't appear to show any mold infection, or signs of being implanted with a Cadu parasite. We see no evidence as to what was done to her at all. There's no mutations, no notes in the lab, and no further comments from other characters. It's possible this could just be a throwaway line that will never be explored again. But there has to be more to this, other than just making it look like that Mia hasn't had an easy time of it by just being locked up off camera. When we get to the end of Village, both Mia and Rose have survived their horrific ordeals, with Rose being dismembered into 4 jars and being put together again as part of the ceremony headed up by Mother Miranda, reforming and being seemingly near and vulnerable like Miranda and Ethan. We jump to after the incident to see Rose, now grown up, in her early to mid-teens, visiting the grave of her father and threatening her escort after an ill-timed joke about Evelyn aimed at Rose, teasing that Rose is far more powerful than she seems, with even Chris Redfield not knowing the full extent of her abilities. After being driven away, we can see in the distance a figure approaching the car before we cut to black. There are a few questions that need answering about this scene though. First off, how much time has passed between Village and this scene? We know that the E-Series bioweapons could age rapidly if not treated with the correct chemical concoctions. We saw it happen to Evelyn going from a child to an elderly woman in a space of a couple of years. Even the flasks that Rose was stored in had a warning about accelerated aging on them, meaning Rose likely has to be careful of an accelerated aging as a trade-off to her other abilities. It's very possible that the time skip after the events of Village could be a matter of weeks or months rather than years. Her aging could have been briefly accelerated after missing a couple of treatments, and then slowed again, but that seems a bit unlikely. The next thing we need to ask is, where is Mia at this point? She's not present during this scene, and she doesn't appear in the gravesite alongside Ethan, so we have to assume that she is still alive. She doesn't appear to be in the car with Rose or her unnamed escort. It's possible that she could just be waiting at home for Rose? Or perhaps her hinted experimentation by Mother Miranda has caused her to be locked away for testing, like Jill Valentine was post-Resident Evil 5. The last question we have to ask is, who is that person that is approaching the car at the end? Thanks to a free cam mod provided by Otis_inf, we are able to see the figure is none other than Ethan Winters. It's possible that Ethan has been used as a placeholder for another character. But if this is to be taken at face value, it would mean that Ethan Winters hasn't perished and has somehow survived yet again. Meaning that his story isn't over just yet, unlike the closing statement after the post-credits scene. Considering how much more liked Ethan has become now, it's possible he could return, but it's more likely his passing of the torch will go on to Mia and Rose as they seek revenge on the connections who broke the Winters family apart. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like and share this video and discuss your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to stay notified of new Resident Evil content. Thank you, Rezzers, and I'll see you again soon.